Background of learning activity. The background of learning activity is that it's based around a grade 5 classroom. The curriculum links are based there. They are from the Victorian curriculum. So the learning activity is based around an experiment of what environment a tomato plant best grows in. So each student in the class will get tomato seeds, a pot and some potting mix to start their own individual potting or plant experience. Each day, students record the growth of the tomato plant and will be able to create meaningful data and graphs from their individual plant growth. Students will be split into 3 groups. So because we're focusing on the environment that this plant best grows in, we'll have the darkest group, which their plants will be based in a cupboard. We'll have natural light, they'll just be placed around the classroom, and we'll also have fake sunlight or artificial light, like such heat lamps. Students will be comparing the growth of each group over the coming weeks. Students will also be taught the component of what makes a good graph, so the y-axis, the x-axis, all the different components, different types of graphs, the way we create meaningful, correct graphs. And this will be, after teaching this will become the students' prior knowledge for the actual learning activity. Learning activity. Over the last 3 to 4 weeks, students have been recording their plant growth in their inquiry notebooks and the table provided. Today's lesson is for the students to take that data in that table and create a meaningful and correct graph. Students will be posed with questions in which is the best way to create a graph from the data that they've collected. So are you going to do a histogram? Are you going to do a line graph? Are you going to do a column graph? Are you going to do a side-by-side, that type of thing? And then students will be taking that finalised graph and their table of data and the information that they have learnt over the entirety of the inquiry, and they'll be putting that on a poster and presenting that to the class. So the resources that I'll be needing for this learning activity is in the middle there, we've got some tomato seeds, we've got the little terracotta pots, we've got the potting mix, we've got a notebook that they'll be needing to record their data in, and also there's a table, an example of a table there that just outlines the seeds, like the plants that we've got, and the days that we're recording the different heights. The way in which I will be assessing the students on this learning activity is through 3 different avenues of assessment. So formative assessment, roaming, and summative assessment. So the formative assessment will be at the start of the learning unit and at the start of each learning activity to help the children sort of think about what we're going to be learning for that class. And I'll also be creating some anchor charts in which the students can refer back to. I'll be using roaming as a verbal assessment. I'll be asking children what they're up to, if they need any help, and just assure every student is on the right track. Using summative assessment as well at the final stages of the unit or the Let's Learning activity, sorry, and we'll be doing their final unit poster about, the best way to grow a tomato plant. Misconceptions when teaching statistics. Students may post vague questions. For this instance, I would have a lesson based around questioning of how to ask a good question. I also model this for the students when I ask them. Some students may construct poor graphs or tables. If I see a child trying to construct a table, I'd use a template that would be in front of them so they can follow that to make sure they have all their key elements. Some students may measure from the bottom of the ruler, not the 0 mark on the ruler. To assist with this misconception, I would make sure to have a lesson to teach the correct way to measure things, and I'd also have a little arrow on my ruler to remind them to measure from there. So differentiations, so the way I'm going to differentiate between the different students in my class is use the level 4 curriculum and the level 6, so the below and the above. Students will usually fluctuate between all 3 levels of 4, 5 and 6, but I'll just use that as differentiation for today. So a differentiation for a student that may be struggling, so in the below, so a level 4, some kids might sit between 4 and 5. But if students are struggling to grasp the concept of data collection, I would help the student with measuring the plant and showing them how to and where to place the data in their notebook. I also may pair a strong student with this struggling student so they can get their confidence on completing the task by themselves, because sometimes it's just a confidence thing, it's not an ability. If a student's struggling with the actual drawing of the graph, I would give them graph paper, or even maybe large graph paper to help visually. I can also draw up a graph for them with labels. As I said before, I'd have a template so they could just follow that. If a student is struggling with what is the right graph to pick, I would show them an example of other students' work in the class, and I might also create my own class graph so that can visually show what graph can show the growth of a tomato plant and how that sort of looks. And differentiation for the above levels, or the kids that are finishing, like the early finishers or something like that. So if a student needs a little bit extra work to extend their ability, I could allow them maybe individually or a group. Maybe there's a couple of them that need a little bit extra work. So I could get them to use their skills of the mean and find the class average of the growth of plants over the 3 groups. And they can create a graph on their own of a side-to-side column of their findings versus the class findings. So we can talk about that as a class once they've created it. If a student needs help with early, like if they finish early, they can go around the classroom and help other students, giving pointers to students to maybe they fix their graphs they've created. Maybe they don't have labels or straight columns, so they didn't use a ruler. So maybe those students can help the struggling students. I'd also help students in the above level to refine their questions. So instead of being a long, lengthy question, I would cut it down, make it more concise, and they'll be able to, learn from